Hey, baby, it's cool if I go hang out with the fellas?
Sure, do whatever you want.
As we all know, I am quite fluent in baby mama. So when the mother of your child says, sure, do whatever you want, absolutely, positively do not do whatever you...
And all your friends, oh, I'm your friend. No, ain't no fucking friends, babe. That's just what they are, your friends. They're not your baby dad. Nobody's gonna tell you. Your mother's not gonna tell you. Your father's not gonna tell you. You're gonna find out when you call them because you have a job interview and nobody can watch your fucking kid. And they're home. They're off that day. You're gonna find out when you're down to the change in the middle of your console to put gas in your car. That love ain't all that. Love takes hostages and will leave you and your kids in fucking poverty and turmoil. So buckle the fuck up. Cause I'm gonna tell you what nobody's telling you. Them fucking babies are yours. And that man ain't never gonna fucking change.
I got 7 kids and 7 baby mamas. Now, for the past few days, I've been going live, telling my story, speaking my truth. And a lot of women having an issue calling me a deadbeat because I tell them I was being irresponsible, yet not wearing protection. But I always tell these women that I got pregnant that I do not want to be a father to these children. And I offer to pay for the abortion. Majority of times, they'll either take the abortion or they'll take a plan B. But only these 7 have kept these children. But the crazy thing about it is they want me to be responsible for some children I told them I did not want. So for some years now, some of them been trying to get in contact with me, access denied. Because I don't really know why you're trying to get in contact with me. I done told you I did not want them kids. So don't expect me to be responsible financially, emotional, spiritually, mentally, or physically with some kids I do not want. Yeah, I could have pulled out, but I didn't. And I ain't care to pull out because I'm not the one that's going to have to carry a baby for 9 months. It's the woman. In my opinion, women should be more careful on who they sleep with because you're going to be like, one of my baby mamas trying to find me so I can financially support a kid I done told her or them I did not want. Another thing is, these just jump offs. These are the type of women that I ain't even had to do nothing for. The bare minimum, but they gave me access to their body, and they think I want to be a father to a child for one of them? Like, I don't even have no type of love for these women. How do they expect me to love these children?
Baby mama, baby daddy culture. When you hear those terms, it's usually synonymous with Black American culture. In Black American entertainment, like hip hop, we see it celebrated, or at least people are used to it. There's still a lot of discussion and discourse on the internet about whose fault it is that this type of culture exists in the Black community. You'll have people say it's more Black women's fault or women's fault because women have more control of a baby coming into the world and more access to things to make sure that doesn't happen. And they should be more willing to prevent having a baby out of wedlock because usually the responsibility bears stronger on the woman because of biology. And for men, there's people that push back and they say, why do we never have conversations about this with men or bring men into this conversation to be more careful about creating single parent households, to also be more careful and mindful in having multiple children from different women? Why does this always get put on the woman and the men not get held responsible? The famous rapper Lotto is getting dragged on the internet. She's getting dragged for these reasons.
I'm not even a Lotto hater, but you cannot create an entire persona about being a free-spirited, wealthy, successful Black woman that doesn't have babies, and then you end up being a baby mama to a man that has a wife. I think that's where the hate is coming from because she is a hypocrite. Her whole brand is destroyed. Like how entire personality is about being a woman who is confident in herself to know she is worth a ring before a baby. Just to go ahead and have a baby without a ring with the man who already has a ring. Mind you, I like her music. I like her aesthetic. I have no issue with Lotto. But now it's like, is the accident, like everyone is always talking about her accident is forced. Now I might believe it because this girl does not she's a liar. You rap about stuff that's not really you. That's an issue. Because you can actually rap. You can rap. You're pretty. But the stuff you rap about clearly is not authentic. It's not you, girl. Hopefully she has a healthy, happy baby. There's no hate on that. But if you could have at least found a man that was going to wife you up. It's not that hard.
And while Lotto's case is a little bit different, right? Lotto is very successful. It does represent this idea that even the most successful Black women end up just being a baby mama. We're starting to see that change in white households, where more white women are becoming single mothers. Some of the most famous baby mamas are white, like the Kardashians.
The Kardashians have been more of an actual footprint on an entire society, not just a community. I'm talking about Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, gay, you name it. There's a
worldwide,
footprint.
yeah.
It's a footprint on everybody. And, you know, I mean, that's power.
But they've also been the epitome of baby mama on television
100%.
for you to see it play out.
Epitome of baby mama. 100, they are.
With the Black man, though, that's the thing.
They are all baby mamas.
But it also shows and emulates this image of a Black baby daddy for primetime TV.
But again, is that a Kardashian problem or is that a Black problem?
I'm going to try to see from a different perspective what is going on. Maybe look at some variables that contribute to this. And so what I looked into, what type do women tend to go for and how much that plays into this? Hypermasculine men and men who are manipulative and narcissistic. How much are women going for this kind of vibe? Also incarceration rates and poverty and sex ratio difference in the Black community. In 2019, there was an article titled, "Where Have All the Black Men Gone?" In this article, they were talking about how the difference in sex ratio in the Black community was so much higher compared to any other community in America. And at that time, the Census Bureau calculated that for every 100 Black women, there are 88 Black men. And in hundreds of cities that are Black concentrated, that number is even wider. There was 81 Black men to every 100 women. Why does that matter? If you've existed in any Black space online, any Black space in person, barbershops, corners, salons, this conversation comes up where people are trying to figure out why wealth is not really running through the Black community and the baby mama, baby daddy dynamic. In this article, they spoke about the fact that part of this is due to higher incarceration rates. You have Black men not necessarily in home, but they're in prison. They don't have addresses, trying to dodge the government or because of a record, which also creates money lost in that community, wealth not being built in that community, not just families being broken. But how did we get here? Today, there's under 18, there's more Black men than there are Black women. But when you're talking about the ages of 18 to 65, to every 5 Black women, there's like 3, sometimes less, depending on the city, Black men. And this creates a huge gap that we don't talk about. So today I want to discuss sex ratio differences and how that impacts the dating dynamic in a community. We're also going to speak about the environment.
I think I have a thing for toxic energy. So I think there's still some more healing that I need to do, because when I look back on all of these energies, it's a shame I gave them so much time and there were sweet energies that I didn't. So now I see those sweet energies getting married and starting families. I'm just like, dang, that probably could have been me if I recognized the security in those individuals at the time.
What do you think it is that attracts you to like toxic energy?
I think they just seem really exciting at first. The chemistry is incredible. And they don't even always be fine. It's not even that like they're sexy or something. I mean, well, they're sexy, but they don't be the finest things I've ever seen. It's just an energy. Sometimes it's convenient, what we talk about. A lot of the sweeter energies that I felt like weren't for me. I felt I could see myself falling asleep a little bit on the phone. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's like, if boring is good or not. Like, I'm trying to figure out what that means. Like,
it's the thrill.
Yeah.
It's the thrill of it.
Yeah.
What's
absolutely. Your sign? Aries.
If someone's rude to me, I'll instantly be attracted to them.
You are definitely going to, over the next few years, you're going to have some of like the most toxic,
Yeah,
horrible
like felons.
relationships. Felons?
Yeah,
Is that
love
attractive?
a felon. It can't be domestics. Can't be.
Murder?
But,
Murder?
Yeah, murder's all right. Depends what they did. If they're like, sticking up for my mum, I'd be like...
Black women tend to choose. This is definitely a stereotype that Black women tend to like certain types of guys that are really hyper masculine, super aggressive, more prone to go to prison. And that's the biggest reason why we see the epidemic we see. So let's talk about it. Let's see what evidence we find. I looked up, when do women prefer masculine faces, like very masculine faces? And the reason why I did that is because very masculine faces and bodies tend to be correlated with higher testosterone and usually a different type of mating strategy. Scientists say that it's a higher probability that they will impregnate a chick and another chick, whereas guys who have less masculine features on average tend to be more inclined to be caregivers and be a better long-term mate. I looked up masculine faces. I also looked up dark triad, like how attracted are women to dark triad traits, the bad boy archetype, right? Someone who's low in emotion and in empathy, they're high in manipulation, but they tend to care a lot about how they look, superficially confident and superficially charming. So I looked at some studies related to that, and this is what I found. There was no evidence that I could find that Black women preferred more masculine faces than any other race of women. Y'all could tell me what y'all find, but I couldn't find anything that clearly demonstrated that Black women preferred more masculine looking men. The whole masculine faces debate is not even clear that women prefer that. There's a confusion. It seems more researchers agree that women tend to prefer faces that are either a mixture of masculinity and femininity, or there are times when they prefer more feminine faces. But the research is all over the place when it comes to masculine faces. So in 2010, they did research where they were saying that women prefer masculine faces in certain environments. It was common knowledge at a certain point that women preferred masculine faces when pathogens were high. In dirtier and more violent neighborhoods, women had less access to healthcare and they lived in dirtier neighborhoods and more violent neighborhoods. They were more likely to prefer masculine faces. The opposite was true for women that lived in countries that tended to be cleaner, less pathogens, better healthcare access, and more safer environments. In those countries, they tended to prefer less masculine faces. This was like a study in 2010. In 2019, there was a study that showed the opposite. So this is really confusing. Stay with me. But basically, they found that women in not as stressful environments preferred more masculine faces. And the theory, whatever, they're thinking that what's probably going on here is that they associate more feminine features with more caregiving, nurturing, positive traits around children. And they associate more masculine features as usually more athletic genes. It's going to create a certain type of body. And they call it good genes or stronger genes. They don't really define in a lot of these studies what they mean by that. And so the guess is that in these countries with better access to healthcare, women have more access to resources, they're more willing to take the risk of having the more athletic baby. That the baby, remember, those men tend to be higher likelihood of hitting it and quitting it. Even though he might hit it and quit it, they'll take the athletic genes. They don't really need his resources. That's the hypothesis. In these environments where it's more dirty, these women really need the resources. So there's a lot of confusion. I do want to add with that study where they found that the higher class societies might like more masculine, more hit it and quit it type guys. They tended to be higher in sociosexuality, which means they had more liberal ideas and attitudes towards sex. And it was the opposite for the women that lived in countries that were lower in socioeconomic status. So they had very conservative ideas around sex. And so the reason why I point that out, because that may have something to do with the difference as well. But who knows? In a nutshell, it's just all confusing. They really are confused as to when women actually prefer masculine faces, but you do have to keep in mind that these things shift and change. If you ask a researcher who's deep in this, they're going to guess that women have a preference for both. A lot of these studies are white-centered, so who really knows? But I would think that Black women are like every other woman. They're not going to be that different in what they find attractive. So I don't know, but definitely not sold on this idea that most Black women just tend to like men who are hyper masculine looking. All right, so the dark triad one. The dark triad one has more supportive evidence that women seem to like men who have the dark triad. They score higher with attraction. Women tend to find this personality type attractive. And this is women in general. This is not specifically Black women. However, the thing that there is a lot of debate about is it because of the psychopathy, the Machiavellianism, like what exactly is it? Because when you think of psychopathy is being emotionally cold, lacking empathy. You can clearly see that a lot of women would not find attractive on its own, right? If someone is emotionally cold, they lack empathy, you're going to be scared. It's given serial killer, right? When you think about Machiavellianism, you're very manipulative. I can kind of see, because if you're manipulative, people don't know that's what you're doing. Maybe that can give you more points in the attraction equation. When you think about narcissism, narcissists tend to be obsessed with how they look. People who take care of themselves tend to be superficially charming and confident, like a superficial kind of confidence. So these are things that people in general, like researchers think that narcissism is the primary function in the dark triad that makes women more attracted to this personality type. Basically, if they weren't narcissistic, it wouldn't mean anything. So you think about this type of personality, you think about the bad boy, it's really certain elements that people in general just find attractive, including men. Men like charismatic, beautiful women who care about their looks, confident women. It's not until you get to know them better when they start doing some damage.
Why do women go after the bad boys, the men that cheat, the men that are womanizers, even though they say they don't like those type of men? And then women be like, oh my God, why y'all be going after hoes? Some of your most womanizing men are some of the most charismatic men that you'll ever meet. Talk game be funny, be hilarious, they be having really good personalities. They're just not good to be in a relationship with. But they be hilarious. They be great men to be around. And that's the reason why they be winning women over. The hoes are attractive. They good looking women, right? They just sleep around with a whole bunch of different men. The men, they be charismatic, have really great personalities. Mr. Personality himself. He just can't keep his thing in his pants, right? Two things can be true at once. They can be great people. I had a homeboy, right? He was a dog. And I would tell them, like, you know you ain't like his main girl. Like, I would snitch on him all the time. And guess what? He didn't care. He did not care that I was telling the girls what he was saying and doing behind his back. And you know why? Because he knew it wasn't going to stop them from dealing with him. And guess what? It didn't. No matter what he did, I went back and told those girls, it never stopped them from dealing with him. It never affected me and his friendship because those women didn't care. They liked him so much it wasn't nothing I could say that was going to stop them from wanting to deal with him.
I'm going to score truth to this, but there's caveats with it. Another part that plays a huge role, which is poverty. This might explain a lot because only 5% of the population scores high in dark triad, and a lot of them are in prison, right? Most Black women are talking to your everyday Black guy. Unless you're saying that Black men have a higher rate of psychopathy, emotional coldness, narcissism, and Machiavellianism, based off percentages, usually about 5% of the population score high in this. That would mean that there's a lot of Black men that this doesn't apply to. A lot of them are in prison. It's a much higher percentage in the prison rate of people that score high in dark triad traits. Something that I came across in the research that does make a lot more sense is poverty. Because poverty creates a situation where you see a lot more higher risk of relationship instability. So people in poverty tend to get married less. They don't think that they're ready. They tend to go through more stress, like their relationships go through more stress because the individuals in poverty who are in a relationship experience more stressors. So for example, they're more likely to be not married. They're more likely to have to pay for daycare. They have scheduling issues with work. They're more likely to have health issues, and they're more likely to be stressed out. A lot of times this is going to spill over in relationships with each other. People in poverty tend to have higher instability in their relationship. This applies to many people in different cultures, not to the degree that it applies to the Black culture. For example, white women are like 3 times more likely that are poor to be cohabiting with a partner and then eventually get married. But they also have more money on average. An uneducated poor white woman, single, has almost 2 times the wealth compared to a Black educated single woman. You got to keep that in mind that yes, they get married at higher rates. Even poor white people get married at higher rates, but they're also richer. Outside of that, you will have communities that don't have money, but they do stay together. And them being poor is not going to be like an excuse for them to leave each other, but their society's structured different. Usually they have family that's more willing to help. And with Black Americans, just Americans, period, we don't live with families, like our families like that. Like our grandma, I mean, some people in the South, I probably should have looked at the difference maybe in the South versus in urban places, but there's so much more other factors. A lot of us don't have grandma, grandpa on mommy's side and grandpa on dad's side that's going to be every day there helping, or even once a month coming up helping, like with babysitting. Our society is structured, it's very individualistic, and people can't get time off. Maternity leave, paternity leave is hard, depending on the corporation, depending on the job that you have. People have to pay for babysitting, which is more money, more stress. Healthcare is not free. The way our society is structured, like the government structure with the family structure, the everyday struggles and not being able to support it because you guys are broke. Poor couples have more instability and they're more likely to have kids. The relationship ends and then they go to another situation. They have another kid. The relationship ends. Like, it's more likely that it's related to poorness than it is dark triad traits and preferring hypermasculine men.
And another reason I could never be a nigga baby mama is because if he only paying $50 in child support, I'ma match his 50 and the baby gonna have to figure it the fuck out. You gonna have to make some shit shake. I'm for real.
Time to talk about the incarceration rates, how much this affects single motherhood. We actually gonna be guessing in this month because I'm just gonna say this. I couldn't find a lot of rigorous data on single mothers. First of all, like the way single motherhood and parenting is described in the literature and the census is very blunt. Do you live with your mom alone? It doesn't tell you a lot of information, especially when it comes to Black community, because we do things differently. Like, does the dad see them at all? Do they see them twice a week, twice a month, twice a year? I don't know. So they do need to get better at this, or maybe I need to get better at finding the literature that is more descriptive. But that is neither here nor there. All these links will be in the bio. There wasn't really much clear literature on how many dads who have a criminal record, who's currently in prison, who have a kid. There's not a lot of data on that. Now, there was a survey, got a number out of it. And so depending on the year, I'm getting numbers ranging from around 200,000+ men in prison, depending on the year. Remember, this is like a snapshot, have a kid, to about 500,000. When we look at the Census Bureau data for how many kids live in single parent households, specifically with a mom, we're getting numbers 2017, 2020, like over 5 million, close to 5 million. When you do the calculations to get the percentage, I keep getting numbers around 13% to about 17%. That would be about 1 out of every 6 to about every 8. You guys can respectfully correct me. 1 out of every 6 to 8 single mother has her baby daddy is in prison. These numbers can be off. Even if you bumped it up and you added a couple 100,000 more men into that, you're still probably, let's say we get numbers like what we got in the 1990s, like 1990, I think kids that were born in the 1990s had 1 out of 4. So 25% of Black kids that were born in 1990 or 1990s had a parent, their Black male parent, that went to prison by the time they were 18. The single baby mama consistently hovering around 48% to about 52%. So about half of households in the 1990s had a single parent household. That would mean that about half of those kids had a parent that was incarcerated. These are snapshots. So it's really hard to say, but in retrospect, we could say about half could have possibly been contributed to the single mom epidemic in the 1990s. We're gonna keep that nugget tucked somewhere else. But right now, I want to focus on the fact that within the last decade, it's a number about 13 to 17% of single mother homes, about 13 to 17% of people who are incarcerated have a kid. There's still a lot of people who are not in prison, who have babies, who are creating single moms. That points to poverty. The structural system that we currently live in and the historical context of the Black American life has contributed to this tradition. Being in poverty is creating this low sense of confidence to get married and to have kids, because you're way more likely to be in a divorce if you're poor. So it's not in these guys' heads. And 70% of women initiate divorces. I wish they had stats on the percentage of women that initiate divorces who live in poverty with the man. A lot of these men feel uncomfortable who are poor getting married because they know that they're going to get divorced. But it is interesting because you guys have a kid. You're afraid that you're going to lose your money for good reason, right? Based off of statistical data. But you ain't afraid to have a kid. Y'all ain't afraid to have kids. Make it make sense. Point I'm making is that poverty seems to be the biggest contributor to these households that have multiple kids, and that leads to single motherhood. These relationships have high turmoil, high rates of tension that leads to a breakup. And then along the years, they find another partner after they had kids and they realize it can work. And then they get this other partner and they have another kid and they're still poor. I definitely don't have all the answers. A lot of data is missing to get better, accurate understanding of what is really going on in the real world. You know what I'm saying?
Black women will have to marry out of the race. And I just want to tell you why, right? Based on the numbers, it starts off kind of even and around 18. It starts to decline, and around 30, it gets out of hand where we're at 7 to 10, 6 to 10.
As Black women, we're the only race of women that start outnumbering our men at a young age.
When you factor in unemployed, homosexuals, people who stay at home, we could argue it's probably 4 to 10.
Plus incarcerated.
Plus incarceration. So with those type of numbers, don't you think it's reality for women eventually to look to other races for men, even if you don't condone it? But it just seems like a realistic approach because there's just not enough men.
So do Black women have to consider dating outside the race since there's not enough men available for them? I would still be against it. I would say that the Black woman can go north to Canada and get her a Black man. She could go south to Central America, more than enough Black men down there, more than enough Black men in South America, more than enough Black men in the Caribbean. I think she has to broaden her horizons, but I don't think she has to go outside of her race.
Black men are the reason why Black women are the least married.
They're the reason?
Yes.
I don't even understand the question. They are the reason why Black women are not married.
Yeah. So it's an unpopular opinion.
Yeah. That about Black women then?
Black men are the reason why Black women are the least married.
What is that, because Black women don't want to marry people? I don't know. What are we saying?
We can't assist you here.
So let's talk about the sex ratio differences in the Black community and how that dynamic affects the culture of the dating scene in the Black community. I'm going to be referring to a multitude of studies. Scientists have studied the sex ratio dynamics for many years. What I mean by sex ratio, I'm just basically saying how much men are there per women. When there tends to be more men than there are women, we see different patterns of behavior and vice versa. This is all contextual, so keep in mind that I'm going to be talking about studies that are talking about closer to like modern times. Let's talk about some of the studies. 2 natural studies, meaning the researcher didn't interfere. Studies where they just looked at natural patterns, natural behaviors from humans. The first study was the Australian study back in the late 1800s. They sent off a group of convicts and prisoners to Australia, and it was way more men than it was women. It was like maybe 155,000 guys they sent off, and then they sent like 25,000 female convicts to Australia to live. This was a more heavily male skewed ratio. They also looked at different immigrant groups back in America, like the late 1800s to the early 1900s. They looked at different immigrant groups that came here that were heavily male skewed and ones that were more female skewed. For example, Italians had more men. The Irish had more women. They looked at the patterns of behavior. They looked at stuff like how often were the men married in each group? How were the females behaving? Were they getting educated? What were the differences? What they found was that when men had more competition, they were more resourceful. More men would get married in the group where there were more men. This is probably because they got so good at competing and also helping each other because they had more resourceful men in the community. It lifted more men in the group. In the group where it was more females, the men got married less. When there tend to be more men than there are women, men will spend more and save less because they want to show you that they could provide for you pretty quickly compared to these other guys. They're going to spend more. A study where guys in a bar, if there's a lot of guys around, he's going to spend money. There's going to be more first rounds because they got to stand out. You also see women work less and get educated less because there's so much more resourceful men in the community. Just pick a guy and they get married and they have kids, and the woman tends to work outside less and has more leisure time and more time to take care of children. When men have power and they have control, in many studies, like we've seen this on college campuses, there's a lot more cohabiting, a lot less marriages, a lot more single parent households, and different from culture to culture. But I'm just saying that you're going to see less marriages, more cohabiting. You're going to see a lot of women complaining about needing to do sexual acts before they have any commitment, even a boyfriend, having to do things seen as non-traditional before they get any type of traditional treatment. A lot less stability when it comes to relationships. So 1870, the first census, it was like 97 men to 100 women. I'm not saying this is causation, but there's a strong correlation with the numbers being so close to normal, and it was very high marriage rates. We're talking about mid to upper 60% of Black people getting married, and wealth developing, and a high education rate, like 70% at one point. They were close to the amount that white people were getting married. And so it's interesting because that tradition didn't get passed on. My final thoughts on everything that we discussed in this video. This video was supposed to bring some nuance into this dialogue about baby mama, baby daddy culture. When this conversation usually comes up, it usually turns into who needs to take more accountability. Is it Black men or is it Black women? And we know that historically, a lot of this is coming from colonization, slavery, systemic racism, and etc. That makes up the majority, a huge chunk of what's going on in our community. But that's not the full story. We were getting married at rates similar to white people, and we never had white people's money. We never had white people's money, right? They had hundreds of years ahead of us. When I was looking at this, I was trying to figure out what patterns were happening that was contributing to this, to figure out where is the problem mostly coming from so that we can fix it. Because there's two things that we can really do, which is what we hear the most today, and is what's happening, which is close your legs. Black women can close their legs. And we're actually seeing that. We're seeing teenage pregnancy dropping a lot more. And this is an effective route. This can work, right? Or the second option can be, we can get Black men to community build better and not stop having kids, right? More Black men who are participating in wealth building. That can be the second option. And people completely ignore that in our community when they're having these conversations. When you look at the patterns of behavior of Black women versus other women, like white women and Asian women, and we can add Hispanic women, right? And you look at the patterns of behavior with Black men and versus all the other races of men, what you're gonna find is that Black women they have similar behaviors to these other groups of women when it comes to education attainment, desires as well, when it comes to wanting a family, when it comes to wanting to participate in monogamy, etc. When you look at the patterns of behavior with Black men versus these other races of men, Black men are going to prison at much higher rates, right? Black men are getting incarcerated at much higher rates. Black men are also murdering each other at much higher rates. It's not to say that white men are not doing it or Hispanic men are not doing it, but they're doing it at much higher rates. When you look at the percentage of Black men that have kids by the age of 40, they're having babies at similar rates to other men. 81 to 83% of Black men have a kid by the age of 40. 83% of Hispanic men have kids by the age of 40. 80% of Asian men have kids by the age of 40. 75% of white men have kids by the age of 40. So the question then becomes, is it that based off of the research that I've been looking at and that I've talked about in the video, is it that Black women just have a much stronger desire for bad boy behavior? Is that what's going on? Or is it that there are just more men in the community who behave badly? And so these women have less opportunities to pick good men. Let's keep it a buck. We got to keep it a buck here. I do want to add this caveat, even though it's true that Black men make up a small percentage of the population, they commit crime. They commit certain types of crime at a disproportionate rate. Poverty and crime are intersected. The poorer you are as a collective, usually the more likely you are to commit crime. So it doesn't surprise me that drug crimes are higher, burglary is higher, robbery and all that stuff. And usually drug crimes are going to be connected to murder and all that stuff. Black people are disproportionately poorer than white people. And so it's this circular thing because poverty increases crime, but crime increases poverty. Like I was saying though, it does seem like women, period, are taking the first option, which is just not having babies. But back to the conversation about crime in prison. When people talk about baby mamas and them having babies with men that are in prison, these men don't start off in prison. People go to prison along the way. 1 in 4 Black kids in the 90s had a parent that got incarcerated by the age of 14. So it kind of just seems like shit happens for real. Part is part of the story, not all of it. You definitely have your career criminals and stuff like that. But you also have a lot of people who they ended up getting caught up some way. A lot of Black men go to prison in their 20s. Like a lot of Black men go to prison late, older, 20s. A lot of them go in their early 30s, in their mid to late 30s even. So even if you go that route and you're just completely holding black women accountable and you're completely like close your legs to these types of men, it's still not going to solve the issue. And then the second part of that is you still have a lot of single moms that are not dealing with men that have a record. Just based off of the data, you have a lot of poverty. You have a lot of poor people having unstable situationships, basically, or long-term relationships that just fail, and then it just goes into another problem. I'm not someone who's going to tell someone what to do with their bodies, but families and moms should be having these conversations with their sons about protection, try to avoid getting pregnant. With the young girls, right? You might find a certain type attractive. You can't control attraction, but you can control pregnancy. Having these conversations and making your kids feel open and safe, like they can come to you about these things instead of their stupid friends or the internet, is way better, right? And even if they make a mistake, they can come talk to you about it and they can get your counsel on it instead of trying to hide everything from you. I think that's a much wiser move. And the goal is to try not to get pregnant before 25. You know what I mean? These young women, moms that are listening, dads that are listening, are in proximity to these guys that are in poverty and that are committing crime, or that feel they need to commit crime, whatever, right? Because they're in poverty, right? Proximity is the number one determiner of a relationship. Some will say a mutual attraction is there, but proximity increases mutual attraction. Once you get familiar with somebody, a lot of other things become less important, including looks. These things are intersected and interwoven. Poverty, incarceration rates, proximity, the ratios, the fact that there are more women than there are men. All of these things matter. The cultural, historical culture in the Black American culture and how we're used to mating and dating. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think are the reasons that are mostly contributing to the baby mama, baby daddy epidemic in the Black community? What do you think I didn't cover enough of?